طيب صباح الخير. There's
Good morning.
interpretation online and we'll have some for a minute in you for you. Um, من أول الحرب حقيقة كان في لحظات صعبة
At the start of the
للناطق
war, of
إنه
course, we had
يواصل
difficult
أنشطته العادية
situations to continue our regular activities
في يعني
because of the
تصعيد
genocide, the
حياتنا حتى
massacres.
نوقف شغلنا أو
So we had
نكمل.
to halt our
اليوم
up our
حزين
work.
جدا
And today is a sad day for the Institute
فقدان الدكتور سمير عبد
as
الله
we lost Dr. Samir
صديق
Abdullah,
ورفيق
friend,
الوزير السابق مدير عام المعهد
um,
السابق عضو مجلس الأمناء
former president
الدكتور
of the Institute and the
آم،
members of the board.
أيضا هذا على أعقاب
And
وفاة
of course,
الدكتور فضل نقيب قبل أشهر يعني
we lost also
وأيضا
our colleague
فقدان
Abdel
120
Naqib
مع
months ago, and also we lost 120 martyrs yesterday only in
الإسراء
Gaza.
جميعا
So, in condolence and to respect their souls, we ask you to stand a minute of silence.
شكرا.
Thank you.
طيب فبالتالي أرحب
So,
بكم جميعا.
we welcome you again.
يوم مهم بالنسبة
Today
للمعهد
is an important day for
لأنه
the Institute, and this is why we
يوم
kept
مهم
this
خاصة
activity
للتحول
ongoing
الفلسطيني التنموي.
and to think about the
ما زلنا هيك
developmental
نتفاعل
thinking for Palestine, because we need such
بحياتنا
meetings
أين
to
نحن.
understand where we are at
باختصار
this point and where we are heading.
ملاحظات
In short, I will give a couple of highlights,
ثم
intro for the day, and then we will provide the
الافتتاحية
background paper, the
وبعدها
feedback paper
من
in
الدكتور
this
العميد
opening session, and then Dr. Hassan Abu
الأستاذ
Libda,
الدكتور
as well as Dr. Omar Shaban
دقة
and Mr. Zain
والأستاذ
Daqqa
رفعت.
will head the three panels of
أنا
today.
لابد من تذكير بعض
So
النقاط
I want to remind you of a couple of
خلال
points, and I will try to do this in less than 10 minutes. First of all, I would
استجابة
like to
ماسة مدبرية
focus
العدوان
on the response of mass
الإسرائيلي
since the start
وكيف
of the aggression and the genocide, and
البنيز كتر
what has
خيرها
been issued by Mass and not by
محاولة
Francesca Albanese, who issued yesterday a
يعني
great
أنا أعتقد
paper on the economies of
أدبياته
the
في
genocide.
هذا الوقت في السنة الماضية كنا نحكي
We
فقط
remember that at this time last year, we
نركز على اقتصاد
not only
العنف
focus on the economy of funding genocide,
والسلبيات
but we worked also on the manifestation.
فالمهم يعني ليس عشان بدنا نتغنى لكن عشان
So
نذكر
we
حالنا انه التفكير
don't want to show off, but we want to make sure that we need to rethink and be a step ahead,
لذلك البعض
even if it comes a year later. And this is why some of the friends said to me,
يفسر لماذا هذه
are you speaking about development?
اولا استجابة
Not
ماس
development. So the
اغلب
response of
عدة
mass
اشكال
had
نشرات
different
ملخصات
forms.
نشرات في اول
We
شهرين
had 10 brochures at the
للجميع
first 2 months of the
للجميع
war. Everybody was
بملخص
stabilized, but we
أهم
tried
الظواهر
in a rush
الأمنية
to study some of the early phenomena
الجديدة
of genocide.
توزع
The
تقارير
monthly report, both in English and Arabic,
دراسات
the
استراتيجية
quarterly report,
واقعية
the
عملناها
strategic
وبتكمل
studies.
بعضها وعم تصدر
There were some were issued and some are still issued in these days about the future of the economy in Palestine
عمليات القطاعية
and the
الدولية
challenges of the current challenges of the sector.
سبع أبحاث
A
بعنوان
series
مرجعية
of
للتوصل من خلالها
papers and researches
للانتقال
about
الاقتصادي
settlements
والاجتماعي
and the
والديمغرافي
implications of the demographic, social, and economic Israeli colonization, and the efforts of some of the international institutes in response to this. And also, I would like to speak about the idea or the concept of that helped us launch these discussions that we do today, this study. There was a workshop in Doha in the Institute for Response to Different Situations, and we held meetings with some of the civil institutes and civil community institutions. It was about rehabilitation and reconstruction in October last year, but we spoke about how it's not the time for this, for recovery, etc. But our idea, our concept was from the past summers that we have 4 points. First of all, relief, and those are 4 points overlap. Extent we have relief, rehabilitation, recovery, and reconstruction. And within this concept, since the early months of the aggression, we started with a couple of studies, initiatives, in short, about temporary sheltering, and that was one of the best recommendations. And at the time, it was projected for 3 months, but now here we are 1 year later. And also the strategic planning, Palestinian planning, which is also a challenge. And then at MAS, we did a challenging cell, if you allow me to call it, and not like any emergency cell. It was formed by me, some of the researchers, and 3 to 4 experts in this field who had passion just like me in this issue that is not being tackled. No one knows their details. The UN works in one field, the government in one field, Israel in another. So we did an initiative at the time that started in November, December last year. And it was a panelist discussion meeting about recovery and reconstruction. And we brought the UN, the World Bank, the Palestinian Authority experts, and we did scoping, landscaping, and there's a report that you can see in both in Arabic, and in English on the website of MAS about the conclusions, and we came up with some of the orientation and recommendations about this idea. And we reached this study today that we projected earlier, and this is the time for it. And this is our goal of today and its borders. And of course, for the panelists as well as for the audience, that our goal is the civil society. And we're not speaking only about representatives and institutions, we're speaking about academics, also individuals in the society, not solely about researchers and experts. So these people need to know at least the minimum, and I don't want to say probably playing a role, but they need to understand where they are now and what's their destiny, where they would stand in the future. And to benefit from this discussion, and I understand some of the ministers always welcome those interventions, and to raise the free Palestinian voice, we could say the agency. And at last, the final panel to listen to those who plan our future internationally and to see where we stand now, what our stance is, and also the comments of the experts, the respected experts that we have now. Of course, we wrote all of the plans, societal plan, also plans from the third session, and we wanted to benefit from the 14 experts, and I consider myself one of them. They come from different sectors. It's not only about field planning, spatial planning. Everyone has their own experience in this field. They are friends of mass, and we thank and fact their contribution to discuss a paper prepared by the Institute, by Mass Institute, that gives a critical thinking about those points within a certain field. Apart, and we did not exclude any of the ideas, apart from some of those that were against our progression. And of course, we asked the commenters for about 20 minutes, and then a discussion, and then a return back to the comments. And of course, very important to remind you that the paper accepts, first of all, the Israeli plans. However, Honaida Ghanem will be speaking about this because we can't tackle everything without tackling the thing that we didn't analyze it in the paper. And also the political plans that were projected by some of the Israeli institutes and governmental bodies, such as U.S. Institute for Peace and RAND, and the governance, the political governance of Gaza. We didn't study this, we didn't analyze it, and we don't want to speak about this or tackle this today. We have enough topics to tackle on, to focus on. And there's a study about think tanks that we did analyze, and Onaida will be speaking about this, and probably the topic deserves another study day if we continue. But for us at MAS, the members encouraged us to do something, and we did something now after 6 months. And this is something that hasn't been funded. We spoke with the donors. Unfortunately, no one has time for us, but I hope we have achieved something through this, and I thank everyone who was here, and I thank all the planners and the experts to delve into this in the future phases. Now, Dr. Hassan, before I give the mic to you, the three facilitators, Dr. Omar, well as Dr. Omar Shaban and Mr. Zain Abu Daqqa will be joining us here from Ramallah for the third one, and those are all members of this emergency cell, and they have also an opinion in this issue on behalf of Mass Institute. They're not only panelists and facilitators. And this is my final event that I will be doing now at Mass. Before somebody comes along, as we say as a slang, dropped through a parachute in my place. And Dr. Hassan Abu Nibda, as an intro, he is not only a former minister and the creator of the analytical institute or center in Palestine. He's one of those who constantly oversee our debates, and he always continues with us in order to try to elevate and relieve those 60 elite experts and members. And Dr. Omar also Shaban is one of the founders and the head of Baltic in Gaza, and he introduced us to Mr. Ali Abdel Wahab from Baltic, and both are currently in Cairo. And finally, Mr. Zain Abu Daqqa, head of the social economic initiative, and also an expert in the Palestinian economy, will be joining us after lunch. So anybody who would like to study about this is also welcome even to join us after lunch. He's a researcher of Palting, member. He's also part of the networking and monitoring systems, and he had former positions in humanitarian positions and humanitarian aid, and he poured all of his heart into this paper. I would have to say, and even some of my colleagues, that he went over the top, giving his experience in this paper, and he also exceeded his experience and academic skills. So, and as we say, hopefully 1,000 flowers will flourish because of this, reach better. So, to Ali Abdel Wahab, please go ahead presenting your paper. So I shared the presentation. First of all, thank you, Mr. Raja. Thank you for the audience, and I would like to highlight also that this study is a continuous work with the consultation debate between Palting and Mass, and we held 6 sessions on recovery. And as stated by my friend Raja, and I would not delve a lot into this because I'm limited in time, I will be tackling this conceptual paper that would analyze the 11 plans, spatial plans detailed in this paper. First of all, every work has its story, and this picture is the theater of this creative production. And we're speaking about 11 plans and about 1,200 papers or pages, and some of the concepts about those plans. And those plans took a lot of time, and as my friend Raja said, they are worth the time put into them. And in short, with regards to the paper, so this paper gives a simple analysis idea about those plans that emerged after 2023 by international and local institutes and parties, and reached up to the point of companies and research institutes, and doesn't only tackle plans, but tries to analyze it spatially and socially. So it's not only in the foundation, it reconstructs the control of the government both in the West Bank and Gaza, and it's a political practice that decides on who controls Gaza and who controls life and the future in Palestine. And we try to read it technically and analytically on both sides for each of the plans. And we will speak about the analytical matrix that would help us understand the interventions and sectors, and to give governmental recommendations. And we did take some of the recommendations about how we can let's start with one plan after the other, and I will not be speaking in details, but it's very important that we read this paper in order to understand the main points of each plan. Of course, we have RAND ARC that was issued in 2005 and gives an idea about the future, about the future of Palestine, just like in ARC, from the north until the south, from Jenin north until the Gaza and the south, such as railroads, ports, airports, etc. It's like an infrastructure of governmental control. And if we tackle it as an analytical plan, we can see that Gaza, it's not a whole concept, just like the West Bank. So we can see that this is a little bit problematic in terms of implementation and review. And there's also no actual plan for ending the genocide, ending the destruction. So the authority becomes here a coordination body and doesn't have full control and organized control over the area spoken about in the plan, and it speaks only about the technical possibilities of the future of Palestine without tackling the political issue, and it doesn't define the state or how the state will politically look like. And then we have the RAND that was issued in 2025, and it came at a critical point during the current war, and it visualizes the plan for Palestine from an engineering view, and it has 5 points, such as regional connectivity, urban center development, and it's more of a plan for the future, but the control is only a positional and a sort of an employment. It's like it doesn't tackle or it doesn't deal with the occupation as an occupation or with Israel as an occupation. It deals with it as another party that is in control of this area, and it doesn't find solutions to this. And it doesn't reach to a point where it tackles how we can disconnect from the occupation and reaching freedom, a phase of freedom and full control over or jurisdiction over the areas tackled. And it sees Palestine, it doesn't see Palestine as a freedom movement. It's a smart idea in terms of the system, but it doesn't tackle the destiny and the governance and the jurisdiction. And then we have the Gaza 2050 that was issued in 2016, led by the private sector. So it connects Gaza with the West Bank and also with the rest of the world. And it has logistical plans. It's a sustainable long-term plan that would reach up to 15 years, also reaches up until 2050, which is almost 25 years. And there's no clearance for the implementation, for funding, and it kind of puts into consideration that the political issue would be solved soon, which is not realistic. It doesn't tackle the refugees or the women issues. And it does tackle that the Israeli occupation is an obstacle, but it doesn't connect it with the actual reality of Palestine and how the Israeli occupation controls every aspect of Palestinian life. So urban-wise, it's feasible, but it needs political foundation so that this narrative stays as is.
As you can notice in the presentation, everything that I'm trying to say is just trying to add to the presentation as much as possible. The IR-DNA plan, which was prepared by the World Bank, EU, and UN, has been presented. They have had a damage assessment of $29.9 billion. This was up till 2024. And this shows also the GDP, how there was total damage to fixed capital and nearly twice the pre-war Palestinian GDP. And this focuses on the main infrastructure, in addition to the psychosocial support and supporting the underprivileged. And as you can see over the slides, the plan has an implementation time frame of 3 short term, 0 to 3 years, medium term, 3 to 7 years, and long term, 7 to 10 plus years. However, as we can see with all the facts and figures that is showing, it's a technocratic plan where there's no accountability, no holding the occupation accountable for anything, and it has everything reduced down to numbers, and this is a problem that should be addressed. And this allows us to see that Palestinians would be a recipient and Gaza is just the lab after war, and it's just the aftermath of it. And now we have the other plan from UN Habitat Plan, and this plan provides a plan that focuses on a planning unit and focuses on green and sustainable. However, talking about green infrastructure and so on, however, they do not use it as liberation tool. So it's just like a management or an admin solution to solve the problem of people living there. However, it does not affect the actual future that we foresee. And here it's having the society just as a recipient and not a participant in making plans for their future. So it just has it as a soft tool to reframe the residents, the government, without having dismantling the occupation. And this plan is technical, however, it has previous policies which have been intertwined or deeply rooted in it without considering the future of Palestinian people. There's the other plan, which is the Palestinian National Spatial Planning Strategy. And this is actually really good because it faces dismantling the occupation and settlements, and it connects Jerusalem, West Bank, and Gaza, south and north. And it's a political, ambitious plan that has planning, national sovereignty, regional integration, participatory planning, and sustainability all together, all intertwined. Although the plan reiterates there's control over 60% of Palestinian land, and it has pointed out to Gaza and West Bank, but it does not provide an urban planning for Gaza and Jerusalem, to be honest. So being frank here. And it does not really touch upon the annexation plan. And it's something that we should also review, because accountability not only should be a way to have it into recommendations or consultations, it has to have grounds in holding them accountable for what they've done. It's almost like an exercise to national sovereignty. It's not sufficient, because not only do we need to have clear, punctual plans, but it has to be a social and political confrontation, not just an admin to whatever we have left from our geography or whatever land we have left. Time is almost up. I'm not going to speak about the Arab plan for Gaza reconstruction. The plan is discussing the transitional administration, the restoration of peace institutions, and restoring legitimacy. And it starts top down and not ground up from the society. So it's reinstating the government not as a liberation of power and Gaza as if it's just like a peace planning and urban planning, and it has Palestine under other powers control. And the latest, I just don't want to be biased. This is the Gaza Phoenix plan. This is one of the bravest plans and one of the most profound that does not only touch upon the reconstruction. Honestly, it's a resistance urban planning that if I may, and it starts grounds up and it works on three different phases, and they're all interconnected. I'm not going to discuss this in detail because Dr. Yahya Sarraj is going to touch upon it in detail. I can give you an overview. We can say that Gaza Phoenix reconstructs the relationship between Palestinians and the place. And this is an alternative narrative and discusses the spatial liberation and requires political protection. So this is not just plans and or just an engineering tool. It requires political protection as well as mobilization. Now we can discuss Trump's Gaza Rivera plan. I'm not going to discuss this in detail. You've heard about it probably. It discusses 50 years and identifies Palestinians as a beneficiary. And it totally lacks any kind of discussion over refugees or people a right to return, and it's like all the Trump luxury. If you can have Jared and Ivanka onto the boat, so we could before we publish it, of course, and maybe we can add something for Bibi Netanyahu. The plan, if we were to say anyone who can read it sees it's like a businessman in a suit, as if they're just coming with it's just like a brand's plan. It's really, really not realistic. Discusses 50 years and over $100 million and or $100 trillion. And this would be linked to the century deal. I'm not going to discuss this more, and you only have 3 minutes left too, just a reminder. And I'll quickly brush on the prep plan from the critical assessment. Al Habtour, a plan which is from the UAE, here does not discuss the siege or occupation or anything, as is Palestine is just like an empty space that requires management. Allow me to flip to the right slide. I'm talking about the prep plan Palestine emerging, and this is just trying to privatize the national decision, and it's acting as if Gaza is a market, not what Gazan people want. And now we'll move to the analytical matrix, which has 9 different dimensions. The primary function. At the end of the paper, it has a plan for every of the 10 analytical dimensions that it includes. The Palestinians here are becoming an object, and they're recipients or just beneficiaries. And coming back to the critical reading as a sovereign act, we have the right to read. And so we're just trying to have knowledge as resistance and trying to, because they're trying to dismantle the political aspect of it. I'll move to the political recommendation or the policy recommendations. we were thinking of developing a normative matrix, which would include 20 criterias to assess reconstruction plans through a mass. So it's really better to work grounds up, and each of the criteria includes 5 different grades or a scale of 5. Also, it's important for us to formulate a national policy charter because honestly, all these plans, the large number of plans, would have us fall into reproducing in addition to establishing a Palestinian observatory. And this should be a transparent monitoring body to systematically track alignment of plans. And it's important for us to have a strategic database for follow-up and assessment and develop a national policy that distinguishes between managing necessity and reproducing hegemony in reconstruction efforts, so we can articulate a planning policy under occupation. And this is something that we should have in parallel with the Ministry of Planning, as well as the Palestinian Cabinet and other think tank institutions in Palestine, such as MAS and others. And this should draft the plans that should take into consideration that we're under occupation and never understate the situation, and always hold them accountable as an occupying power, and at the end ensure that we are able to manage the policies instead of being just an object, to be a subject. So to be able to make a difference. And by this I can conclude, and I'm sorry if I've taken a couple of more minutes extra, 3 actually, but we benefited from you the 3 minutes that you have exceeded. And Dr. Hassan is not upset now. I give him the floor to manage the very first panel.